The inactive phase of the MJO is moderating El Nino, just for a little while. I'm Mark Sponsler, and welcome to the Stormsurf Video Surf Forecast for the week starting Sunday, January 7th.
Stormsurf, waves, weather, buoys, altimetry, snow, temperatures, El Nino, weather analysis, essential data for outdoor people. All the time, no hype.
If you haven't subscribed, just click the Stormsurf icon down in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. That'll get you all set up. You get automatic notifications when the videos are posted, typically on Sunday evenings. And if you enjoy the video, be sure and give us a thumbs up. There you go. And if you have any questions or concerns, be sure and write them up. We'll try to answer as soon as we can. And if you'd like to make a small contribution to the cause, you can. Hit the special thanks button down below, the heart with the $sign in it. And with that, I'd like to thank the folks that donated last week. RP Stovall, Kim in California, Evolution Moto, Our Predicament, and KMJ Berto. Thank you so much for your generous contributions. And then a special call out to the Don, Big Daddy, Don Montgomery. A very, very generous contribution. Don and I have been buddies for decades, it seems like now. And it always shocks me when people I know that closely generate or donate as well as they sometimes do. I really appreciate it. I'm humbled. I really don't know what to say. We'll start by looking at significant wave heights for the North Pacific Ocean. We see an area of seas 22 feet in the northwestern Gulf of no real particular interest. Another little area of seas like 18 feet or so north of Hawaii, and then something trying to organize off Japan. But for the moment, a rather quiet pattern is setting up. Looking at current conditions, we'll start in Northern California. The Point Reyes buoy, number 029. We're looking at all the energy that's hitting that buoy all the way up from 33.3 second period. Super energetic, strong swell, which we see 1/10 of a foot at. We see a bump here at 15 seconds. This graph goes the whole way down to 5 second period. That's pretty much unrideable wind chop. Really rideable surf starts somewhere in about the 6 to 7 second range. But we see a definite bump of energy. So these labels here are the height of the waves in this energy band. So there's energy 2.5 feet at 18 seconds, 3.6 feet at 16 seconds, but you can just look at this here, this bump here, this is one swell, and it pretty much ranges from about 13 seconds up to about 20 seconds, with its peak at 15.4 seconds. Then you see some wind swell down here in about the 9 second period range. And then you see pure chop in the 5 and 6 second period range. Putting that all together, we say primary swell 7.6 feet at 15.6 seconds from 298 degrees. That would make surf at about 12 feet, and that's about what it is. So you can see it right here, 15.6 seconds, roughly right there. But that incorporates all this energy under this area. Then you see a secondary swell, 6.1 feet at 11.8 seconds from 306 degrees, and that is surf at about 7.2 feet, and that incorporates this energy in this area. The further down into the lower energy bands you get, the wider the sweep is looking for swell. We try to tailor this to be as conservative as possible so that you don't get, you see wind swell and you see ground swell. When you have a 15-second plus period ground swell, 9 second period swell doesn't pile on top and add to it. If anything, it just lumps it out and makes it ugly. So what we do is we try to keep things pretty conservative here, but once you get down into these lower period bands, we take a broader sweep because it kind of the 7 second and the 9 second period stuff all sort of adds together. All right, let's move on. Then we go down to Southern California, the Point Loma South buoy, 191 there off of San Diego. Same sort of swell pattern shows up. You see that it's actually 16 second period here because that swell is still, it's kind of a north-angled swell, so it's still working its way down south. And then you see all the wind bump as well. Put it all together, primary swell 3.8 feet at 16.3 seconds from 272 degrees. That's getting some wrap. This buoy's inside the Channel Islands, so there's some wrap there. It makes surf at about 6 feet. And then secondary swell 5.7 feet at 10 seconds from 274 degrees. Again, in about the 5 to 6 foot range. And so that is that. And then finally, over to the north shore of Oahu, the Waimea Bay Buoy, number 106. A much quieter pattern there. You saw the significant wave height chart. There's not a whole lot going on. We see little bumps of energy here in about the 13 to 10 second period range and lesser energy from there. Let's take a look. Primary swell, 2.2 feet at 12.8 seconds from 339 degrees. That's surf in the waist to chest high, or 2.8 foot Hawaiian, which some people would say maybe it's 10 foot, but in reality, that's probably about chest high or something like that. Then you see your wind swell, 2.5 feet at 9.2 seconds from 111 degrees. That's east trade wind swell wrapping around the north side of Oahu. All right, so what's been going on the past week? And this is pretty interesting. We had a very intense storm develop on the, I'll call it the north dateline region. Once you're north of about 45 north, I'll call that anything north of there. North dateline region building quickly. This was on Tuesday, the 2nd of January, into Tuesday night. I think it peaked out at 48 right there, 48.8 feet. These are the highest seas over this entire domain, all aimed off to the east. That's a pretty north angle. So you can see most of the energy bypassing Hawaii. Pretty north angle even for California, and pretty well shadowed for Southern California. And then it pushed off from there into Wednesday and faded. Then beyond that, still remnant energy pushed through the northern Gulf into Friday. A new system started to develop on Saturday, again over the northern dateline region again. This is due to a split jet stream flow. We'll get into that in a minute. Driven by the inactive phase of the MJO. We got seas up to about 38 feet. This is on 18Z on Saturday, so 10 o'clock Saturday morning. And then that system pushed north of the eastern Aleutian Islands, pretty much faded out. And then here's where we are today with a little bit of energy in the northwestern Gulf, but nothing nearly as impressive as what we've had. So we'll start looking forward. This is over the next 180 hours, the next week. It all starts in the jet stream. El Nino is really about feeding energy to the jet stream. We see it right here. The jet pushing, Japan's right here, pushing off Japan, winds building to 180 knots, falling into a trough right here, a trough, a dip in the jet. That's what we're looking for, because a dip in the jet creates a counterclockwise flow aloft. This is up at 30,000 feet. And also down at the ocean surface, that's the hallmark of low pressure. And of course, low pressure, if it's strong enough, generates winds. Winds eventually get traction on the ocean surface, impart energy to the ocean, creating seas. Seas, as they radiate away from the fetch area, get groomed out. The short period energy dissipates. You end up with swell, and of course swell when it hits your beach produces surf. So we have some potential here. We know there's a weak little low up here. Nothing great. You notice the jet almost trying to split a little bit here, but mainly, for the most part, consolidated to a little bit east of the dateline. Then you see this big split here. High pressure in between. The main flow of storm energy pushing up off of Canada, then down the U.S. West Coast. Here is a classic backdoor trough, sort of like last year. Drags cold air along with it and moisture. You get snow. I think there was some snow up in the Sierra. We'll get into that in a little bit in the presentation. But between the split flow, you get high pressure. We've got a lot of that. High pressure generates northwest winds along the California coast. We've got a lot of that today, too. So, yes, there is swell, but conditions pretty poor except at protected spots. Putting this into motion, again, we're looking for troughs. We're into Monday. We see something developing Monday, Tuesday here, south of the Aleutians, somewhere on the north dateline region again. Notice the split holding in control. A big, another backdoor trough pushing down the U.S. West Coast. There's our trough, getting pretty steep as we get into Thursday and almost pinched off north of Hawaii. The trough, again, possibly producing snow in the Sierra, moving onshore. We're into Friday the 13th, Saturday the 13th. Then the jet kind of organizes, trying to figure itself out. Still strong here. El Nino fueled energy, but the inactive phase of the MJO, as we teased in the intro of the video, kind of in control. That stealing some energy from the jet, allowing this split to set up and persist. So we're into, well, we're a week out now. You kind of get the sense of another backdoor front, more high pressure, troughs somewhere out in the dateline region, but the storm track all being driven off to the north. So more of the same, it looks like, for the coming week. Let's go down to the surface. Surface level pressure, surface level winds. Okay, we see a batch of 35-knot winds pushing off Japan. That's, I mean, we're really looking for 45 or greater knot winds. We see a little bit of fetch up here in the northwestern Gulf, but here's your main culprit here. High pressure, 1028 millibars driving northwest winds down the California coast, and moderate trades over the Hawaiian Islands. So we get into Monday. Here comes the next low, trying to organize 45-knot winds. Do we get, there we go, 50-knot winds Monday night to 55 knots Tuesday morning, pushing over the north dateline region, then heading off to the north. Another system tries to develop north of Hawaii with 35-knot northwest winds aimed down at the Hawaiians and a little bit at the U.S. West Coast, but lifting north pretty fast. So we get into Thursday. Here comes another system trying to organize on the dateline with 55-knot winds briefly into Friday, and then it too sweeps off to the north. A little local low north of Hawaii, another little local low off the U.S. West Coast on Saturday, possibly making some weather. Then you see yet another system on Sunday. I mean, lots of potential for activity, but it almost seems like it's moving too fast to allow the winds to get deep traction on the ocean surface, and then the split not helping us at all. So what are the effects of those winds on the ocean surface? I mean, you got to have winds imparting energy to the ocean to generate seas, and then the seas have to decay into swell. So right now, we don't have a whole lot going on. We see a little local gale setting up Tuesday off of Pacific Northwest with, what's that, 24, maybe 25-foot seas. Another one on the dateline with 37.2-foot seas, building to 37.9. And that's probably about it. Pushing over the north dateline region, fading out. Another system, as expected, north of Hawaii, generating 25-foot seas, aimed pretty much off to the east. All these will produce swell, just not the mega swell that we have been seeing, especially north of Point Conception. It's just been one big swell after another. You know, to get surf less than 15 feet is almost a rarity. Can't complain, but the winds have been a bit of an issue. Okay, and we get into Friday. Here we go. Another batch of 36-foot seas pushing off to the east pretty quick. Friday into Saturday the 13th, and some trailing fetch off of that. Another little low somewhat north of Hawaii on Sunday. It's almost a week out, but not really aimed south at the Hawaiian Islands. Oops, and then one more little thing trying to organize. The model's a week out, pretty much not believable. We're only good for about 3 or 4 days out, so there is potential. Looks like a more moderate swell pattern setting up. Local wind forecast, well, you can see the issue right here, high pressure 1030 millibar circulating off the California coast, generating 20-knot to 25-knot winds, mainly off the coast, not so much near shore, though it was still pretty windy, and creating a bunch of wind swell. You also see trades for the Hawaiian Islands southeast at 15 knots. So we get into Monday, winds fade a little bit, a little window of opportunity along California with much diminished swell. Trades almost turning south. They're not even trades anymore. South winds for the Hawaiian Islands and building to 20 knots. You see that there. Tuesday, yeah, looks like a little bit of a wind thing going on for California. Not horrible. Low pressure developing north of Hawaii. South winds in control. Wednesday, here come your northwest winds. Next batch of high pressure moving in. The coast getting raked. Hawaii, full west winds, 15 knots. Thursday, more of the same, northwest winds, west winds for the Hawaiian Islands. Friday is their hope. Yes, the high maybe looks like it's trying to move onshore. Winds lighten up a little bit for the California coast. And Hawaii, Northeast winds at 30 knots. Not really a great setup. Saturday, a little bit of a maybe lighter wind regime for California. Another local low practically right on top of Hawaii, generating northeast wind swell possibly if this all verifies. And then Sunday, little low pressure off of California northwest winds. Same kind of a messy pattern for the Hawaiian Islands. And there we go. Another low setting up north of Hawaii, a lighter wind regime for California. The all-important rain forecast for California. All right, high pressure typically means dry air. We're focused on California. That's San Francisco Bay Area. Up there's like Cape Mendocino, Central California, Southern California down in here. The blues is our rain, and then the whites, if you can see them, would be snow. We're into Monday, dry air. Tuesday, here comes the system setting up, pushing down California, not really doing a whole lot. Then Wednesday, it gets better organized, snow in the Tahoe area, rain moving pretty quickly down the Sierra and down the coast. By Wednesday, that's pretty much over. Some lingering showers into Thursday. Friday, dry air. Saturday, here comes another system, snow for the Sierra, and a little bit stronger there the whole way through Saturday into Sunday morning. Then that quickly clearing out and high pressure taking over again. So it's a fast-moving north to south storm track, not your traditional El Nino storm track at all. We are not in a super El Nino, and well, we kind of gave it away. We're in the inactive phase of the MJO, so the storm pattern is more of a north to south La Nina flavored one, at least for the moment. Snow forecast dashboard for Palisades, Tahoe. Little bit of precipitation. What is this? The 10th? What's that? Wednesday. About 6 inches, 7 inches. And then some more over the weekend, Saturday, that gets you to about 15 or 16 inches. Let's go check out a couple other resorts. Sugar Bowl doing the same thing, 6 inches, and then getting you to 16 inches. Kirkwood looking like 5 inches and maybe 15, maybe 16 inches. And Mammoth, an inch or two with another inch or two on top of that. Same basic pattern. Then quickly looking at snow levels. This is for Palisades, Tahoe. This is the base of Palisades. This is the summit up at 9,000 feet. The parking lot about 6,200 feet. Blues and whites are cold, freezing air. The gray is sleet. The 32-degree line is right at the interface of the gray and the white. So you see for today, pretty low snow levels, 2,000 feet, maybe even lower than that. Snow level coming up, or the freeze level coming up a little bit, 7,000 feet on the 8th, then falling back down below the base. For the 12th, you see the snow level or the freeze level coming up, then falling back down to about 5,000 feet. That's pretty much standard Sierra winter freeze level. And then you have a big warm-up forecast for the 15th, 16th sort of thing, and then coming down from there. This is 10 days out. Don't believe any of it. From about somewhere in about here is probably as far as I'd stretch it. Then our surf forecast. All right, we're looking at projected surf heights. When you see the graph here, this top graph bottoming out, that means there's a whole bunch of wind, and the model can't tell between wind, just like chop, and pure swell. Typically, even if there is swell with all the wind, it typically isn't rideable. So right now it's pretty much garbage. But then as we get into Monday, 9-foot surf working its way down as we get into Tuesday to 3 or 4 feet. And then you can see the wind speeds down here at 25 knots, 25 knots, just a mess. And then surf again, fading Friday into Saturday. I mean, still in the 7-foot range. If it was summertime, we'd I'll take it, anything I can get. Then you see a big push up, 12-foot surf theoretically a week from now. Swell height, 7 feet, falling to 4 feet in the 12 to 13 second range. You see period here, 13 seconds, but just, the swell is completely lost in the wind. Then finally, okay, as we get into Friday, 6-foot swell fading to 3 feet in the 11 to 12 second period range. New little pulse of swell, 3 feet at 17 seconds, slowly building up to 9 feet at 14 seconds next weekend. So there is surf. just not as big as it was, and we have some wind to contend with. Going down to San Diego, it's much smaller surf pattern, blockage by the Channel Islands, all this swell that's coming, pretty much north angled. We see 2 to 3 foot surf. There's your wind bit. You see the 20 knot winds there, and then theoretically 5 foot surf, and then down into the 1 to 2 foot range sort of thing. Swell heights 4 feet at 9 seconds. There's a little 2 feet at 13, 14 seconds. More wind swell, and then more wind swell 5 feet at 8 seconds, 1 foot at 6 seconds. Then next weekend, slowly building 1.5 to 2 feet at 16 to 17 seconds. Just a lot of blockage by the islands. And then Oahu, North Shore. Well, surf building as we get into Monday to 11 feet, settling down into the 8 foot range, then up 13, 14 seconds, but there's some wind mixed in there, then slowly coming down. I mean, pretty much 8 to 10 foot surf for the entire week, with periods of some pretty intense winds. Swell heights building up to 9 feet at 12 seconds on Tuesday, in the 6 to 7 foot range at 11 seconds. So that's some sort of like local north wind swell, I guess. And then 11 feet at 13 seconds, something like that, and then fading from 11 at 11 seconds. So looks like a pretty tortured sort of situation wind-wise, not unexpected during El Nino, and especially in the month of January. All right, let's move on. Let's look long-term. The long-term outlook focused on the MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, and the ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation. We're looking for signs of the active phase of the MJO. There's 2 phases to the MJO, active and inactive phase. Active is good, inactive bad. Active phase is low pressure, inactive phase high pressure. The 2 phases of the MJO, active and inactive, rotate west-east around the planet on the equator. One phase on one side of the planet, the other phase on the other side. When the active phase, the good phase, moves over the West Pacific, well, it's low pressure. It takes warm, moist air down at the ocean surface air, lifts it aloft, that gets caught by the jet stream. It energizes the jet stream, consolidates the jet stream, allows it to push theoretically the whole way across the Pacific, consolidated, feeding storms and swell production. Inactive phase does the opposite. It steals energy from the jet stream because it's a high pressure system, cuts off the flow of warm, moist air to the jet stream, allowing the jet stream to get weaker and split. So right now, you saw it on the charts, we have a split jet stream. It's pretty strong over in the West Pacific. That's all being fueled by El Nino. And the active phase of the MJO is like a short run of El Nino. The inactive phase like a short run of La Nina. So if your base state is an El Nino base state and you're in the inactive phase, which we expect we are, that steals energy for the jet stream. The jet stream is still pretty strong in portions, but not as strong as it could be. It's being destructively interfered with by the inactive phase of the MJO. When the active phase of the MJO syncs up with the El Nino base state, they supercharge each other, and then you get these long runs of good swell like exactly what we had in December. So it's not unexpected right now that things are mellowing out a little bit. Let's get into the details. So we're just to confirm our suspicions, we're looking at data from the TAO buoy array, a series of buoys strung across the equator in the Pacific used for monitoring El Nino. There's wind sensors on those buoys. The arrows are the wind direction. The longer the arrow, the stronger the speed. So pretty strong easterly winds over the East Pacific, moderately strong over the Central Pacific, and moderately strong east winds over the West Pacific. When the active phase of the MJO is in control, trade winds reverse themselves. Okay, so we're looking for signs of that. So over the East Pacific, we see, it's anomalies, the difference from normal that really counts, not the actual wind speed, but are they weaker or stronger than normal for this time of the year? Looking over the East Pacific, pretty much normal. Central Pacific, pretty much normal. Over the West Pacific, pretty much normal. So no clear signs of the active phase of the MJO here, but no clear signs of the inactive phase either. What has the wind been doing the past 5 days? Okay, this is just the east-west component of the wind. The oranges are westerly anomalies. That would be the active phase of the MJO. The blues, easterly anomalies, the inactive phase. But let's get ourselves oriented here first. So there's South America, Central America, New Guinea there, the equator right there, the date line roughly there. The part that really matters the most is right in here. We call it the Kelvin wave. Oh, the date line right there. Yeah. The Kelvin wave generation area right here. This is where you get the most energy imparted to the jet stream when the active phase is over here. So when you have westerly anomalies here, that's when the jet stream gets charged. Now look at this. This is on January 1st. You see westerly anomalies all over the eastern equatorial Pacific, and it's only 5 degrees north and south of the equator that really matters. So this looks like the active phase moving over the East Pacific with the inactive phase moving in to the West Pacific. Same deal on the 2nd, same deal on the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. Actually, if anything, it looks like the easterly anomalies took a little hit here on the 5th. That's maybe a good thing. So here's the forecast going out 2 weeks from the GFS model. This is past performance. And let's get ourselves oriented. Oh, and the forecast is down here. Date line right up the middle. The far East Pacific starts about 125 east, so right here. So, and it is this area, the Kelvin wave generation area, from here to just a little bit east of the date line to about there. Okay, and you can see back almost the whole month of December, westerly anomalies filling the Kelvin wave generation area, very strong. Little bit of a break. Today, westerly anomalies trying to get another foothold in over the West Pacific, continuing into about the 15th of January. I'm sorry, the East Pacific to the 15th of January. That's important. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But the main consideration here is easterly anomalies moving into the far West Pacific right around the new year and taking over fully not only the Kelvin wave generation area, the entire equatorial Pacific from about January 15th on. These westerly anomalies are important because though they're not in the Kelvin wave generation area, they keep or they help tamp down upwelling over the equator in the East Pacific. And we're interested in that because there is some good upwelling going on. This is probably the last push of warm of the last, the second to last Kelvin wave number 8 upwelling today off of Ecuador. The westerly anomalies in this area will help get maximum surface warming, which therefore means if the ocean's surface is warmer than normal, you get more evaporation. That helps feed energy to the jet stream. But really, it's about just getting maximum surface warming to impart energy to the jet so that as we move into January and February, our El Nino continues to have some legs on it. All right, let's go further out. The outgoing long-wave radiation forecast. What's that? It's just cloud cover, basically. The inactive phase of the MJO, because it's a high-pressure system, means cloud-free skies. The active phase of the MJO, because it's a low-pressure system, typically means cloudy skies. All right, so you can use this to get a sense of active or inactive phase. South America there, Central America, Hawaii, New Guinea there, the equator right there, the date line right there. Kelvin wave generation area in this area. This goes out 15 days, roughly 2 weeks. You see oranges. That means a lot of sunlight reflecting off the ocean surface. Cloud-free skies. Inactive phase of the MJO there. Active phase over the maritime continent. And we go out 5 days, 10 days, 15 days. This is a statistic model, by the way, basically unchanged for the next 2 weeks. The GEFS model, the GFS ensemble model, pretty much saying the same thing. You do get the sense that the active phase is building and trying to seep into the West Pacific, but it's being held at bay here for a little bit. Phase diagrams, okay? Same two models, statistic model, dynamic model here. How do you read this? Well, the active phase, this is mapping the location and strength of the active phase of the MJO. Active phase moves from west to east, from the Indian Ocean over the maritime continent, that's like Bali, to the West Pacific, to the East Pacific, under the United States. It's on the equator, remember that. Across the Atlantic on the equator, over Africa, back to the Indian Ocean. The dot is where the active phase is today, so smack in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Ocean. The further the dot is away from this circle, the stronger it is. So we'll say you want to see the ideal situation is the dot is here in the West Pacific up as far as you can get. It's on the exact opposite side of the field. So clearly West Pacific is in inactive phase, Indian Ocean in the active phase, moderate strength. The forecast, two of the members here have it moving, racing to the West Pacific and extremely weak. One other one says not even making it to the maritime continent and continuing at about moderate strength. The GEFS model, look at this, it has it going backwards for a couple of days, then working its way. This is actually pretty semi-interesting here. Moderate strength, almost strong strength, poised to move into the West Pacific 2 weeks from now, just waiting for its opportunity. This is kind of a tease, and some of the models have been hinting about this. We'll get into it in a minute. But maybe this little pause that we're getting into right now is just a recharge moment for our El Nino. And come, I don't know, somewhere in February, things could get very interesting. Upper level model, statistical model, this goes out 40 days, same deal. The greens area is favorable for precipitation, one would say cloud cover. The orange is dry air. And this is 8 panels, 5 days a panel, South America, Central America, New Guinea, equator there. Date line running right down the middle. This looks like active phase pushing off to the East Pacific. This would be the 7th of January, continuing off to the east. Here comes the dry air setting up the 27th of January, holding into about, maybe the 6th of February. Then here comes wet air and the active phase of the MJO moving in for the beginning of February to at least mid-February. So here's the CFS model going out 30 days. Past performance here, forecast down here, date line runs right up the middle. Kelvin wave generation area starts about 125 east, so right about here. Now this has the actual MJO. See MJO, the black line. Dotted is inactive, solid is active. The oranges, westerly anomalies, the blue, easterly anomalies. So back in October, inactive phase. And here comes your active phase with strong westerly anomalies doing all the good things. Inactive phase around Thanksgiving. Here is our big active phase that happened pretty much the whole month of December with westerly anomalies. Here is our current inactive phase of the MJO. Still has about 2 weeks of activity left with it with easterly anomalies, and then you begin to get the sense of the active phase setting up somewhere around early February with westerly anomalies, the El Nino base state trying to redevelop. And then here's our setup for our next model that goes out 3 months. This is outgoing long wave radiation anomalies, cloud cover, but this is actuals. This is not a model. And it goes back a year. Date line runs right up the middle. You can see this is clear, dry air. This is last year, February, March, April. Your La Nina base state with your El Nino signature over the maritime continent. So wet air here, dry air here. Now you get down to where we are, you see the complete reverse. Dry air over the maritime continent, wet air over the date line. But also notice here, dry air already starting to push into the far West Pacific. The beginning of the end setting up, we all knew it was coming. We've talked about it for a week or two now. That pattern will continue to build. That said, the El Nino base state is very well ingrained over the Pacific. It isn't going anywhere for months and months. The fundamentals here might change, but the momentum in the atmosphere will persist for months. So for right now, our Walker circulation, this moist air is upward moving air that's normally over the maritime continent like that. Well, it's moved over the date line, classic El Nino kind of setup. Then here's the forecast from the CFS model for outgoing long wave radiation. Okay, let's see. I don't know that I can get this the whole way up there. Anyway, okay, the date line is right there. This is past performance down here. This is the forecast. You see the building. The blues are cloudy skies. The oranges, dry air over the maritime continent, now starting to work its way into the West Pacific, but wet air forecast to continue and pretty solid as we get into late January and February, lingering into March, and then everything sort of peters out from there. So next up, we go look at 850 millibar winds, the east and west component of the wind. Again, here's the date line. We're back in September 2023. West anomalies. Looks like active phase, active phase, active phase, active phase, our December active phase with west anomalies. Now, here's our east anomaly setup that's occurring right now, but notice westerly anomalies hanging in the West Pacific, but they too will get blown out by about the 15th of January. An upwelling event across the entirety of the equatorial Pacific, followed by, starting theoretically the last week of January, the whole way through February and into March, with a pretty strong westerly wind event. Now, this is a month out? Don't know that I believe it, but one last push of El Nino likely set in this area. The point being, yeah, things are mellowing out right now. If you like smaller waves and drier air, this is your time to go do whatever you're going to do. But once we get into here, my guess is the floodgates are going to open again. Now let's overlay the MJO just to confirm our suspicions. The solid contours, active phase, the MJO. Here's the December one. Dotted contour, inactive phase, yep. So we're not even at the peak of it yet. We got another 5 days to go. It'll peak out probably about January 23rd, and then the active phase start. It runs the whole way through the end of February with westerly anomalies going beyond that. And then here comes another inactive phase of the MJO, and things probably start to mellow out as we get later into March. And then finally, the low pass filter. This is your low pressure, high pressure bias. Dotted contour, high pressure over the maritime continent. This is your La Nina signal, as should be over the maritime continent during an El Nino. The low pressure signal with 1, 2, 3, 4 contours has been peaking. Looks like it's going to get another 4 or 5 days, and then we lose the fourth contour. Third contour hangs on till about the 23rd of March or something like that, and then we begin the demise of El Nino and the low-pressure bias. The second contour hanging on somewhere into April, and the primary contour, notice it too, pushing slowly to the east. It's over California. It's actually past California, and pushing deeper into the continental United States as we get into springtime. Maybe want to be watching Tornado Alley as that happens. All right, what's going on down in the ocean? Not at the ocean surface, but down deep, down up to 150 meters down. Would that be 450 feet, something like that? During El Nino, warm water that's normally in the far west Pacific starts moving east. So we use this data from the TAO buoy array, that series of buoys strung across the equator. These are the actual anchor lines on the buoys, and there are sensors. The X's are sensors strung down those anchor lines. Sensors collect subsurface temperature water data, use a model to fill in the gaps, and you can literally see Kelvin waves progressing across the Pacific. The 30-degree centigrade isotherm line right here, it's at 166. I think it was 165 last week and the week before that. I mean, piles of warm water moving off these. It really isn't going to move any further. 29-degree isotherm, within a degree or two of where it was. The 28-degree isotherm, now this guy was at one point over to 120 west maybe 3 weeks ago. It has sort of backtracked some, suggesting maybe there's some easterly anomalies or something there. A little bit interesting. But the 24-degree isotherm, this is still really warm water, still nice and deep and mature. We're in full-on mature El Nino from an oceanic standpoint right now. But it's not the actual water temperatures. It is the anomalies, the difference from normal for this time of year. West Pacific here, East Pacific here, glaring out 5 degrees centigrade anomalies. So what's that, 8 or 9 degrees above normal Fahrenheit, backing up off Ecuador, 4 degrees here. There was a good little push of 3 degrees, almost filling this entire area last week. It's mellowed out a little bit. This was from that final push of the active phase of the MJO in December. Took whatever warm water was left here, pushed it off here. Some of that, I think, is bleeding in and just this warm pool. It's not even associated with a Kelvin wave. This was the final Kelvin wave number 9, generated by the December active phase of the MJO. This is a combination of Kelvin waves, probably 8, 7, and 6, all pulled up here, all upwelling up to the ocean surface. Now, this is the key thing. I was talking about those westerly anomalies for the next 2 weeks hanging right over this area. If they do that, that allows this to upwell and get maximum warmth on the ocean surface without east anomalies sort of beating it down and dampening the heat. That would allow more of this warm water to evaporate and push energy up into the jet stream and to feed the El Nino base state some more. So we're watching that. But all that said, there's probably, if you stretch it, maybe 2 more months of warm water sitting here, and doubtful another Kelvin wave. There's probably not enough warm water left over here. Maybe there is for that active phase of the MJO that's forecast in February to create another Kelvin wave. We'll see, but I'm not even counting on it at this point. I mean, we've gotten all we're going to get. El Nino typically peaks out sometimes as early as November, typically by Christmas. We think our El Nino is peaking out probably about right now, and we'll show you that in a minute. Then we look at other data, this data, the GODAS subsurface water temperature, and thank you, Ben, for getting me up to speed on this. So I thought this was all pure satellite data, but it actually uses the buoys, the TAA buoy data, and satellite data to peer down into the ocean to get a sense of exactly what's going on. Basically the same profile here. You see warm water. I'm sort of watching where, let's see, the 1 degree line is, which is right there. And it's been steady right about 170 east. So this whole big pocket of warm water. And then you have 5 to maybe even 6 degree anomalies buried in here, all working its way up to the surface, bouncing up in the surface anywhere all along here. So a giant reservoir of warm water pushing up. Sea level anomalies. This is the satellite data used to feed into that previous chart. You have a satellite, rotates polar orbit around the planet. The planet rotates under it. So the satellite just does its loop. The Earth slowly rotates under. Eventually, over a period, I think it takes about a week, you get an entire coverage of all the Earth's oceans during a week period. Anyway, what you see is, then using that satellite data, they're mapping the height of the ocean, the sphere of the ocean. Is it higher or lower than normal? Why does that matter? Well, warm water at depth expands. When it expands, it creates a bump. It displaces water above it, creates a bump on the ocean surface. Cold water contracts, does the same thing. It creates a divot on the ocean surface above it. So the satellite, you get all your satellite data, you strip out the waves, the wind waves, and the tides, and you determine, is the sphere of the ocean higher or lower than normal? Using that, you can estimate how much warm water, how much volume of more water is underneath the ocean surface. So here's the equator, here's the date line. It's kind of hard to see, but that's Chile, Peru, Ecuador. There's the Galapagos Islands there. Central America, Mexico, Hawaii. Date line there, equator there. Pretty much this is unchanged. You see the outer periphery, the western periphery of the positive anomalies, 0 to 5 degrees, slowly easing its way east. The 5 centimeter isotherm line or contour line holding about steady. If anything, the 10 centimeter, this is considered where the bulk or the real warm water is. If anything, this has gotten more consolidated with the January 3rd update, and all this pushing into the east. So there is still 2 months, month and a half, I don't know what it is, of warm water all moving this way and gurgling up to the surface, building or reinforcing the El Nino warm pool, which we're going to look at in a moment. And then finally, equatorial upper ocean, still down in the ocean. I think it's the upper 300 meters of the ocean, heat anomalies, okay? And with this, you can see Kelvin waves, plain as day. Active phase of the MJO creates westerly anomalies, takes warm water. This is the West Pacific here. Starts pushing it east. It doesn't travel on the surface. It travels underneath the equator, down about 150 meters, eventually hitting Ecuador, which is over here, erupting to the surface. December not 2023 and 2022. First little baby Kelvin wave made its way across. There was the last lingering cool water associated with what was our 3-year La Nina. Then Kelvin wave number 2 in January, Kelvin wave number 3 in March, Kelvin wave number 4 in April. This is April of 2023. Kelvin wave number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, and look at this. You can just barely see it right here. Number 9, and the contours bulging back to the west. Number 9 developing, reinforcing the warm pool just a little bit longer to give us just a little bit more push. Late developing El Nino, but certainly its character seems to have staying power and momentum, and certainly very eastward displaced. I mean, California is at 120, Ecuador is at 80. All this water has been from Ecuador for the most part to about not even somewhere even east of California. That is a true sign of a solid, well-organized El Nino. Sea surface temperature anomalies. This is ultimately what matters. You got to have warm water on the ocean surface, and it has to be able to evaporate to be able to affect the jet stream above it. Now, look at this. These are probably the most prominent warm water. Actually, it's just 2 of them. These are not overlapping correctly. You'll see it in another image, but this is the higher resolution data. This is probably the peak of El Nino as of January 6th. I think the data is actually a day old. This is the 5-kilometer high-resolution sea surface temperature anomalies. You see here, not as warm, but once you get to about the Galapagos, the whole way out to, well, there's California there, whole way out to 140 west. I mean, most of the warm water, the official El Nino monitoring region is called the Nino 3.4 region. It starts at 120 west, south of California, so right there. But you look at this, most of the warm water is even east of the official El Nino monitoring region. It goes out to 170 west, so here. This warm water, in the presence of easterly anomalies, will eventually start drifting out into here, but it also gets mixed up and kind of upwells and loses some of its energy. But I think this image right here is probably going to be the peak of our true El Nino heating, and from here it's probably downhill. We'll see. The westerly anomalies that I showed you in the East Pacific that are supposed to hold on for the next 2 weeks, if they do, then maybe this will linger a while, and that would be good, because we're playing a game here with the numbers. It's sort of a gentleman's wager on how hot will this El Nino get, and will it reach super El Nino status? We're going to get into that in just a second. Sea surface temperature trend for the past 7 days. Here we see warming along Peru, but it's right in here that we're most interested. We still see warming. The oranges are warming. It's only 5 degrees north and south of the equator. Where those hottest indicators are on the previous image, there and there, they show up there and there. Those are probably the upwelling points for all that warm water down underneath the ocean here, gurgling up to the surface. So for now, no upwelling, no easterly anomalies. I mean, the ocean's pretty much about as warm as it's going to get. So just to have anything like that is kind of like, oh, that's pretty nice. And then here's the consolidated view, high-res view. Again, here's the equator, Galapagos there, Ecuador there, Peru, Chile, you know it. And the biggest warming starting about 100 west, going out to about 140, right in there with those 2 upwelling points there. But the official El Nino monitoring region starts here, 120, 5 degrees north and south of the equator, out to 170 west. So you see it's not as warm there. There's good warmth there, but the real key warming is way east of even the official El Nino monitoring region, pretty far easterly displaced. A moderately healthy El Nino. The sea surface temperature trend over time here. Nino 1.2 region, right there by Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands. You saw it in the image. The trend, the water temperatures there, trending down, but just for the past, what is this? These are 1 week, so we'll say 2 weeks, up to 836 thousandths of a degree above normal. So we're trending upward again. This will probably be short-lived. By January 15th, easterly anomalies moving into the area, and this will all probably start falling down to neutral. It is the official El Nino monitoring region, the Nino 3.4 region we were talking about, the area south of California out to almost the date line. You can see we've been on a steadily rising trend up to maybe about 5 days ago. Now we're down to plus 1.436, but we were up at like 1.6 or 1.7. And this isn't even the official index. These numbers are low. We're going to go take, but the trend has been up. Maybe we're falling. Maybe we'll come back up. We're pretty close to the peak either way. And then the weekly data. Updates for the Nino 3.4 region right here. This is the actual temperatures. This is the anomaly. That's what matters. You can see the steady upward trend. August 30th, 1.6, 1.6. But we hit 2.1 there in November. 2.0 in November 29th. We went down to 1.9 the first week of December, but the past 3 weeks, 2, 2, and 2. Why does that matter? Well, okay, let's go back to the previous chart. Neutral is plus or minus half a degree above normal. Weak El Nino is half a degree to 1 degree above normal. Moderate El Nino is 1 degree to 1.5 degrees above normal. And remember, this data here is low. Strong El Nino is 1.5 degrees to 2 degrees. Super El Nino is 2 degrees and above. So we're eyeing these 2-degree anomalies. They're right at the borderline. And whether it's 1.9 or 2.1 degrees probably makes zero difference in terms of its effect on the jet stream and storm production and rain production and all that. But we're just playing a game here. This is an intellectual exercise. Can this El Nino actually make it to super El Nino status? How would it have to do that? Well, you have to have 3 consecutive months of 2 degrees or better to reach El Nino status. Now let's go look at the next chart. And you see we're on a 2-degree binge right here. And that period from the 28th of December to, I don't know what it is, the 6th of January has already happened. My guess is the numbers are at least 2, if not 2.1. So that would give us, well, where are we at? We could start here, the 15th of November to the 15th of December. We got to get to the 15th of January, November to December to the 5th. Yeah, November, December. And if we can get to the 15th of January and average out 2 or higher, theoretically, this could be classified super El Nino. Now, it's sort of a cheater's super El Nino. They'll probably officially label it strong El Nino, but we'll be right on the hairy edge. So here is the Nino 3.4 index centered. They adjust it based on the changing climate. And here are the numbers. 7, so that's July, August, September, October, November. Here's your first month, 2.02. December, 2.07. You saw the readings that we're getting into and what's happening and the westerly anomalies forecast into January 15th over that Nino 1.2 area. We're trying desperately to eke out a January value of 2.0 or better. Will we get there? Probably not, but it's going to be a nail biter and very close and very interesting, considering especially we've been watching this for a year or more now, a year and a half. And it was always kind of, at first it was projected super El Nino. Then it was, well, it's just going to be strong. And then we were all sitting here talking in the comments section. Well, maybe we'll get to about a plus 1.75 or a plus 1.8. But we're actually, it looks like, going to overperform that. So here is the high-res data for our current El Nino, looking pretty good for this time of year. Let's go look at 2 other El Ninos. Here is the 2016 El Nino, or 2015-16, which was considered a super El Nino. Now, let's be clear. This thing peaked out in December. I think it was like December 5th or something. I'm just doing this by memory, and I don't have the image here. And this was already starting to fade. But you can see that, we are warmer now than that 2015 one which was considered super El Nino status. Now notice it's warmer out here in 2015 than it is in our current El Nino. It's the warmth over this, again, the Nino 3.4 region, this area out here, not here. So, we're not in that league, but it's close. And then we have one more here. The true super El Nino of 97, 98. Now, this is already in fading stage. You see just how much warmer it was. And we'll just blast through these guys just for fun. There is 2015, 16. There's 98. There is our current one. We'll do that again. 2016, 98, and our current one. So we'd be trying to cheat to say we're a super El Nino, but we're hoping, just as an intellectual exercise, that we can get there. A quick look at ocean currents. Here is New Guinea here, the equator here. You see the westerly current. It's pretty much dissipating already. The fading bit of El Nino, the inactive phase of the MJO, taking its toll for sure as we move our way the whole way across to, there's Ecuador, there is the Galapagos. You see easterly current in control. It's falling apart. Sea surface temperature anomalies. Now you see very warm water still north of New Guinea, the whole way making it to, the leading edge I think is right about there, which is about where it was last week. That is, 150 west. Pretty much passing a little bit Hawaii. Maybe it has moved a little bit off to the east. And you see a lesser water temperature pattern out here. But then let's go look at that was the sea surface temperature. That is the actual sea surface temperatures, but let's look at the anomalies. That's what really matters. Okay, Hawaii, there's Hawaii right there. You see New Guinea off there. The official, let's see, is that 170 west? 170 west starts there. That's the beginning of the official El Nino monitoring region. We'll just do some samples, 2.6 degrees above, but then 1.7 up there, 1.2. You get the idea. It's a mix. You see your really warm water is, where is this? This is at 122. That's where the official El Nino monitoring region ends, is right here. You have a pretty good flow of warm water, but look at that. There's your two really cooking hot pools at 3.8 degrees above normal, 3.8. Yeah. So if the trades drag this over into here in the next 3 weeks, something like that, through the end of January, again, maybe we'll get to that magic 2-degree reading. Hard to say. I'm not counting on it, but it would be fun. What does the atmosphere think is going on? Well, we talked about this at length last week. You can go see that portion of the video. We're looking at the difference in pressure between Darwin, Australia, and Tahiti, a long-running record. Tahiti in the Pacific, Darwin in the Indian Ocean, roughly. When pressure is lower in Tahiti, then the index goes negative. Well, it's not negative. It's pretty much neutral. And that is typically indicative of at least the active phase of the MJO, if not El Nino itself. You can see going back in time, at least in the daily record, we have some good negatives, but pretty much a neutral pattern. The 30-day average, minus 4.19. If El Nino was peaking and it was really getting a good solid footprint and everything was right, this should be minus 25. We're not even close to that. The 90-day average is this would be your active-inactive phase indicator. This is your El Nino indicator. This should be at minus 15. We're at minus 5.91. We're actually more positive than we were a month ago. But remember, we said pressure in the South Pacific Ocean is higher than normal for whatever reason, especially for an El Nino. We're not sure what's going on. So that's likely sort of stomping on this long-running record. But we'll look at the graph anyway. Here's the 30-day moving SOI graphed out. You can see during our La Nina, when we were all in positive values, there's the zero line. El Nino developing January 2023, falling south. And this looked like where we should have been. But then for whatever reason, It's just not doing what it should be. It should be toggling all down around here. It isn't doing it, and, well, that's just the way it is. And then just for laughs, the forecast for the official sea surface temperatures from the CFS version 2 model for the Nino 3.4 region, the official El Nino monitoring region. I really love this. So these lines, October, that's mid-October, mid-November was, you see, approaching 2, but we did better than that. Mid-December, right at 2, it says. And mid-January, well, we're, 10 days away, and it says we should be at 1.5. The model doesn't even have a clue what's going on. The line is continuing somewhere up in here, and then we'll probably start quickly falling off from there, though. And you see the impending doom of La Nina coming around the corner. We're not going to go down that route for now, but we've got all the rest of this year to talk about that. So for right now, a little bit of a pause in the action. Still surf, just not over the top. Still wind and still some rain, but certainly not as much rain as we were hoping for. We think all that is attributable, at least for the moment, to the inactive phase of the MJO that's setting up. Lingering west anomalies in the eastern Pacific hopefully will push our sea surface temperatures up to the near 2-degree range for the month of January, getting us in super El Nino status. Not likely. We'll probably stay in strong, but we'll see. It's something to monitor. And then we have the active phase of the MJO pretty much set to take over in February, going the whole month of February and beyond. I would think that is when things are going to get very interesting. The jet stream will consolidate again. The storm track will go over the top. Hopefully we'll get some good solid storms at the same time, build up the snowpack, and push some rain over the southern tier states, which still have not seen, any of us have not seen anything close to what we want to see in terms of El Nino precipitation. I was just looking here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the numbers we're like 80% of normal, maybe 90% of normal for precipitation for this time of year. I think the projections, at least for the California area, if I were to guess, I think we'll probably have some sort of a late blooming event in February and March in terms of snow and rain. We'll end up at 100 to maybe 115% of normal. That's just a wild guess. Don't hold me to it. But I think that's how this year is going to work out precip-wise, which would be fine given what we had last year. And then next year, with La Nina, with the lingering momentum from El Nino in the atmosphere, 6, 9, 10 months later, still I think we're going to end up with a pretty wet and snowy pattern for next winter. But then the winter after that will be deep in La Nina and things will probably get dry again. So that's the forecast for this week. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. If you would have any questions or concerns, you know how to write them up. If you want to subscribe, click the icon down in the lower right-hand corner. If you want to make a donation, you can use the special thanks button, the heart with the $sign in it down below. And other than that, go get some waves, go get some snow, go have some fun, be safe. And I think things are going to get spicy here in about 3 weeks. So take the time off to go spend some time with the family, go do what you need to do, because I think we're all going to get real busy in February. All right, see you next week, and thanks for watching.